Hi, I'm Sally Kirkman from sallykirkman.com, and I'm here today with my dear friend and fellow astrologer, Christina Rodenbeck from oxfordastrologer.com. And we're back here today to talk about Aquarius season, effectively. It's the sun's move into Aquarius on January the 19th. So we're going to be having a look at the astrology of the month ahead. And for those of you who've not already listened into our 2025 astrology podcast, then please get on there. It's the big themes of the year, and a lot going on. But we're starting with looking at kind of the beginning of 2025, really. And we'll talk a little bit about what's been and gone and how the astrology is playing out. Hello, Christina. How's it been for you this last month?
Well, how's it been? It's been frenetic. I mean, I have a sister in Los Angeles. So I
Yes.
was actually really worried about her. She's absolutely fine, but it that was huge,
Yeah.
actually. Initially, it was very kind of calm and flat, and then quite a stormy start to the year, and dramatic. It
Yeah.
feels like there's drama around, and things are happening, which is interesting because we're in this Mars retrograde,
Mm.
which means that some things are. Sometimes I think that Mars, I want to say, it's like a bulldog or a guard dog, and when he goes to sleep, it's like the guard dog has gone to sleep, and things
Mm-hmm.
happen.
Mm.
Things come out.
Mm. Mm.
So, and so speaking personally, I've been very, very busy. Even leading up to the new year was just frenetic for me because I was getting all of my work
Mm.
done. I was actually working on New Year's Eve, which was very annoying for me.
Crikey.
I got up on New Year's Day and I thought, I'm never doing that again. Never
No,
again. Never.
no, good, good. How interesting, because I did the opposite, you know. I,
Mm.
I, I, I took, I kind of worked so I could have 2 weeks off. I had a week with family and then a kind of week on my own leading into New Year. And I did think, I'm Aries rising, Scorpio sun, so Mars is a massive planet for me. And I did think, God, I'm doing the Mars retrograde thing here. I'm really putting on the brake and taking a step back, and kind of having fun time, quiet time. So I don't know, maybe I'm a bit in control of Mars retrograde. Is that possible?
Oh my God, don't never say that.
No.
Never. So
No.
yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? I mean, because I have Mars in Pisces. When Mars moved into Cancer, I did feel a kind of shift, and I quite a nice shift. So
Mm,
I'm feeling that support from the watery Mars now.
mm,
But while it was in Leo, it was just, you know,
mm,
crazy.
mm,
And that's
mm,
my, 12th house, interestingly
mm,
enough.
but also your ascendant sign, isn't it?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
And I think sometimes not sometimes, I think we've talked about this before, but we both think that whole signs are really important.
Yeah.
When you're, especially just when you're doing this kind of general, when you're doing transits. So
Yeah.
less so when you're studying the natal chart, but when you're
Mm,
just looking at transits, it's so important.
mm,
Um, I mean, we've talked about this in terms of Saturn returns, haven't we? That I always look at the Saturn return from when Saturn goes into the actual
yeah.
sign.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And it's often, and the whole 2 year period can be
Yeah,
important.
absolutely.
Things can happen when Saturn leaves that sign as well. So it's not just the sort of exact date or when it peaks. The big themes, particularly when you look back again, so important doing this retrodiction that you do see that. I agree that I often say to clients, look at what happens when, Jupiter, Saturn in particular, are moving into their new sign and see what happens then. Because often you get a flavor, you get a theme of what it's going to mean for you or how it's going to play out.
Absolutely. And, and in these current times when we have all of these big retrogrades going on this spring,
Mm,
I also think, keep an eye on that Mars as it's gone into Cancer. It's going to be in Cancer a really long time. So,
mm,
till April. Um,
yeah,
so get used to it, guys. What's it
yeah,
like there? And really consider where that fiery energy is, you know, it's not going to sleep exactly. Well, maybe it is if it's a guard dog, but it is there. It's burning away there in Cancer for you. And consider, I mean, for Cancerians, obviously that's really important. It's about regaining your strength, regaining your fire by maybe stepping back. But you've got a long time in which to do that.
It's and also just, you know, when you were just picking up on some of the kind of the themes of this, I mean, when you were talking about Los Angeles, which has been pretty devastating, it made me think of that Mars in Leo fire opposite Pluto, which annihilates, destroys. I mean, the pictures just feel like, you know, that Pluto desolation. It raises things to the ground for rebirth, renewal to have to grow. I mean, it does. It always comes back, but you know, there's this kind of poignant symbol of Mars is now in Cancer, which is, you know, it's security, it's homes, it's family.
People's
So,
homes are burned down. I mean,
yeah,
that's the incredible thing is the number of people. I think it's 250,000
yeah,
or maybe a bit less, but it's a lot of people affected by that.
yeah,
And you know, the whole neighborhood's gone. Altadena.
yeah,
So yes, I mean the Los Angeles fire, again, it's also just a massively symbolic event as well for the rest of the world. Everybody well, not everybody, but most people have heard of Los Angeles on the planet. You know, this is a famous place. It's like Notre Dame being burned
yeah,
down.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
would hold that in my heart if for Los Angelinos is that one of the big symbols of Pluto and Aquarius that we already have is the rebuilding of Notre Dame, the reopening of Notre Dame, the building up after fire. A and B, I would say it ain't over yet, guys. So be vigilant
yeah,
still, because this spring is extremely unpredictable
yeah,
in terms of random events. Let's put it like that. Surprise events. And I mean that the images of that, I mean, there's so many ramifications for that fire, from those fires, that are really interesting. Um, uh, the, I mean, I think people should take heart also from how few lives were lost. I know it's really terrible for the people who lost their lives, but it says something very good actually about the fire and rescue and the neighborliness and how people looked after each other, that actually so many more people could have died in those fires.
yeah, yeah, no, yeah, agreed with that. I mean, and just kind of, you know, with the timing of all of it, I do think I want to say, I do think it's part and parcel of, as we were talking about in the 2025 podcast, you know, this epic move of particularly Neptune moving into Aries, because Los Angeles, it's Hollywood, it's the place of dreams, it's the place where movies, you know, I mean, that's what we think of when we think of Hollywood. We think of that Hollywood glamour. And Neptune's making this epic move into Aries, 0 degrees Aries. I mean, it will be at the end of March. And that's where the North Node has been as well, at 0 Aries, you know, moved back into Pisces on January the 11th. So from 0 Aries. So this 0 Aries point, I think, is going to be really key for kind of rebirths, renewals. And it's going to get triggered a lot because of the retrogrades of both Venus and Mercury. And then these major planets, Saturn and Neptune, moving back and forth as well. So, I mean, there's something about that.
I agree with that. I think that this is this is why it's not over. You know, it's part of a huge wave of things that are happening. And,
Yeah.
you know, basically Hollywood is an incredibly symbolic place for the whole planet. It's Tinseltown. It's the Dream Factory. I've just watched that movie Babylon with Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie, which is about the end of talkies, and it's a sort of homage to Singing in the Rain, which also was about the end of talkies. And here we are at the end of a Neptunian era, and every Neptunian era that you look back on, which these are about 15 years, you will see a theme at the movies. If you go back, you know, and look at these 15-year cycles, it changes every time Neptune changes signs. And, you know, as I think we mentioned in the whole year ahead, we're just coming out of, there's been a lot of fantasy that's been one of the themes of the last 15 years, is very fantasy, um, uh, fantastical Marvel comics, even Barbie, this has been one of the themes. And I think that's going to change when we go into June and Aries. I mean, it'll be interesting to see whether that's
well, yeah, action movies. I mean, screams Aries, doesn't it? But
it kind of does, but then we've had a lot of action movies. Do you know what I mean?
we have,
So I think it's going to be more about the individual again.
yeah,
Like maybe the small, maybe what people, focusing in a little bit more.
Yeah,
Rather than these epic things.
Or maybe sort of hero's journey in different forms. With the move into Aries, the hero's journey, and the importance, like you say, of individual action and how that impacts the world.
I mean, I would say the hero's journey and Joseph Campbell have completely. It's a great book and a great theory, but it has completely infected the way Hollywood scripts are written.
Yeah, true.
It's already done that. It's all the hero's journey. It's like, oh my God, when you're watching a very kind of factory made film, okay, we're going to have the little thing happen just before the end where you think it's not going to work because whatever, which is kind of straight from that. But at the same time, and so it's really interesting that there's this fire in that place, and it's a I want to say it's a bonfire of the vanities also, which is, I don't want to go too far down that road, because actually most people who lost their homes were completely, lived in altitude. They were completely ordinary people.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like all the stars, etc. Really, I mean, it was them as well. As we all know, Paris Hilton lost her home, but it affected everybody. And that is one of the things that's really Pluto in Aquarius, in that it is democratic.
Yeah.
Everybody's the same. When you have a fire going on, it doesn't matter if you live in a mansion or you live in a hovel, you still can lose everything. And this is, I think, going to be one of the messages of Pluto in Aquarius. All those people who think that hoarding their wealth is going to get them their special secret firefighters is wrong.
Yeah.
Because fire is fire. Water is water as well. There will be floods. Also, God, now I'm sounding biblical. But there will be. Hello, climate change, guys.
Climate change, yeah. We're seeing it, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're seeing it.
And it's a leveler. That's the word I'm looking for. It's, and as you described, that Pluto in Aquarius, those scenes of the leveled Pacific Palisades is also leveled. So I want to say in terms of society,
Yeah, it is. Although the media picks up on the celebrities, let's face it,
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, but we don't have to. Do you know what I mean?
No, we don't have to. That's true. We don't have to. So yeah, it is. It is about the whole of society, isn't it? That's the Pluto Aquarius theme. And just to sort of kind of the final thing I want to say about the retrodiction is that, for me, well, this Mars going back into Cancer, this full moon that we've just had as well in Cancer. Oh, Lordy, woke up, worrying and anxious about everything. I mean, really felt full on. And of course, Mars was incredibly powerful. I mean, the other thing I've got going on at the moment, and no surprise, because this retrograde's happening in my fifth house of children, is I've got my daughter's moved back in. She was meant to be moving to a different home. That fell through. She was going to stay with me. Now she's found a sublet. So, which she'll have for a few weeks. Then she's probably coming back in February. So also just to say that the Mars retrograde in Cancer for me is this, not knowing what's happening with my daughter, whether she's going to be with me or not. And I thought that was very symbolic as well.
Yeah, that's kind of nice. Lovely. You're having your daughter back for a while.
It is lovely, but it's just plans keep changing so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a great dream, a very interesting dream last night. Speaking of under the full moon.
Yeah, we're talking on it.
That we're talking on the full under the Cancer full moon. I dreamt that, just in a nutshell, we were all growing younger.
Oh, lovely.
And it was kind of lovely, but kind of too really weird
Oh,
because it was accelerated. We were acceleratedly
okay.
the whole. So even like children were turning into babies, and this was it was weird. So everything was going backwards. Basically, time was going backwards, which
Mm.
is great when you're in a Mars retrograde, right? But it was very science fiction, you know.
It's kind of really resonant with that Mars retrograde in Cancer, isn't it? Almost returning to the womb in a way, going back to children and the womb.
Yeah,
But also something about, I like it moving into Aquarius, Susan. You know, anything's possible under this age of Aquarius,
yeah.
isn't it?
It was.
Technology.
It wasn't all good. Let's put it
Oh,
like that,
okay.
because
Yeah.
we were going towards the point of non-existence by going
Mm.
backwards. It's like what
Wow.
happened?
Okay.
So instead of
Mm.
death being in front of us, it was like behind. So it was like kind of worrying anyway. But we didn't reach that point
I
in
was
the
going to say,
dream.
what
I
would
don't
have
know what.
happened?
I don't know. I woke
It's
up. You know.
maybe there was a be an expansion, and I don't know. You'd have been a spiritual being, Christina. Who knows?
And my cat came and woke me up.
Yeah, you'd have found out, you know, what it's all about, what it means.
Oh my God! I would have known.
You would have known what's the meaning, true meaning of existence. Wow. Anyway, maybe that's just go back into the dream, see if you can expand backwards to that point. And again, that feels a bit like when you're talking about it, makes me think of the 0 degrees Aries, the
Completely.
seed point, and we're doing this, the alpha and omega, aren't we? The beginning and the end, moving from the last point of Pisces, last point of the zodiac, beginning point of the zodiac as well. 0 Aries, this back and forth is going on throughout the year. So
It's incredible. And just to point out, now that you've said that, it's made me think about how this Mars retrograde is ruling that 0 Aries point,
it is.
right? So
Yes,
there's that
yes.
connection as well.
Yeah.
So we're being given this chance. And one of the things about Cancer, the sign Cancer, where it is now, as opposed to Leo, where it was before, is that it's all about family and the memory and childhood.
Yeah.
So it's all about memories, and
Mm.
maybe putting some memories to rest.
Mm.
I would say this is a general point for everybody, not just the Cancerians amongst us, but for
Yeah.
everyone. What is that? What is Cancer? And I mean, for some people, there's people in Los Angeles, their memories were burned down.
Yeah.
So they're ashes. So
Mm.
memories turn to ashes for some
Yeah.
people under this Mars retrograde. And
Mm.
then you need to bury them and then move forward. But it's a prolonged process.
Mm.
This isn't like something you do overnight.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean throughout this whole month of Aquarius, I mean January 19th to February 18th, Mars remains retrograde in Cancer, doesn't it? I mean it's going on. It only turns direct on February 24th as we move into Pisces season. So this theme, this Mars retrograde in Cancer, is staying with us. And I agree, it's about being pulled back into the past, actually. But Mars wants to do something with that, doesn't it? Because
I think so.
there's still an active, what do you want to do with that? It's not just wallowing in it. It's
Yeah,
kind of what initiative or action do you want to take
I
around the
com-
past? So
I
quite
completely
interesting.
concur with that. I think that it's like, I mean, the analogy, the metaphor I always use is, excuse me, is the polishing the weapons one.
Mm, mm,
That you're in the camp, you're polishing the weapons, but you're not kind of lying around too much. You're actually kind of actively resting, so to
mm,
speak. You're actively resting. And
mm.
that's quite an interesting thought. It's not completely going to sleep.
Yeah.
Um, Despite there's that famous Botticelli painting, I don't know if you know it, with Mars and Venus together, and Mars is sleeping, and he's
Yeah.
got his helmet by his side, and he's being tickled by the little cupids, which is clearly because Botticelli was very interested in astrology, so all
Mm,
of his paintings are astrological.
mm,
But that one is clearly Mars retrograde with Venus, I always think anyway.
mm. Yeah, so the Mars retrograde stays a huge theme, doesn't it, all this month? But we're moving into Aquarius season. Aquarians. I have to say, when I was just thinking about Aquarians, and when I was kind of in my 20s, 30s, and I had a group of friends, I mean, 4 of them were Aquarians, which is quite unusual, isn't it? I mean, they make great friends. But and a couple of things about them that was so similar. I mean, one was that, if they arranged to meet you for a one-to-one, I love one-to-ones. I'm a Sun Scorpio with Moon Libra. I love a deep connection. They'd say, let's meet up. And then, you go and meet up and they'd bring a pile of friends with them. So it was always just, let's get the social buzz going. And, just thinking now about them, they're kind of my age, the 4 of them. And out of those 4, none of them had children, which I think is quite interesting.
Yeah.
And only one of them married. And the other 3 are still actually kind of dating, keeping relationships sort of casual. And I thought, how interesting, because that is, it's one of the sort of classic archetypes of Aquarius, isn't it? This sort of independence in a way. So I mean, that's when I was thinking about Aquarians. I thought, wow, it's quite interesting that, those 4 friends followed on the whole pretty similar paths.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I do know a lot of singleton Aquarians, and it's usually through choice. It's not like they kind of had a kind of terrible failed thing or anything. It's just that it's through choice, because they'd rather keep it that way, because there's so many opportunities, and I agree about the friendliness. Also, I think that applies to sort of people with Aquarius moon can be very, very friendly. And very, again, back to this egalitarian thing that I love about Aquarians. I was talking about that with Pluto and Aquarius in terms of like the fire devastating everybody exactly the same. But there's that equalness, that ability to, that seeing everybody as just the same, just human beings, is a really charming facet of Aquarians. Like they'll find the interest in someone who other people may find like really boring or whatever. The Aquarian will talk to them and find something interesting, to draw out. And they're not, they're the opposite of that, of snobs, usually. I mean, this is what we're obviously making sweeping statements about them. But in general, they're conscious of the social structures, but they're not snobbish at all. They don't, I wouldn't say you have to prove yourself with an Aquarian at all either. It's like easy come, easy go.
Well, if anything, I mean, the opposite star sign, Leo, can sometimes be a snob.
Very much so.
so, they're the opposite of that, aren't they? Really, they're the opposite of that. And the other one, particularly one friend who, very always kind of the first person to get new technologies, quite scientific type, but also a real airhead. I mean, quite hard to engage with him because he'd always be on his blooming, computer or phone or checking things out. Again, a bit of a myth. I mean, they're not all like that, but it's just my little bunch, Yeah. They're quite classic of the star sign.
And often have quite a varied network of friends as well.
Yes.
Although I'm thinking of some other Aquarian, the young Aquarians I know are quite often people who've had the same group of friends from school. And they have this posse, and having said easy come, it's easy come, easy go with the people on the outer edges, but the close posse for Aquarians, the close friendships can be lifelong. So you get, make friends with an Aquarian and they'll be lifelong friends.
And I was just wanting to say about also one more thing just on this Aquarius. One of those friends was born on February the 4th, 1962. So if you were born on February the 4th or February the 5th, 1962, you had all 7 planets in Aquarius: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Extraordinary. I think there's a group on Facebook called Aquarians of 1962 because they had to bond together. I mean, so unusual. But yeah, I mean, wow, that's quite extraordinary, isn't it, to have all 7
And how is that? How do you think that's worked out then?
I don't think. Well, I'm not going to go into it here because it's kind of there's intensity in certain areas. There's certainly intensity in certain areas, and there's been some real highs and lows, I would say. Because obviously when you get a planet moving through Aquarius, it triggers everything, doesn't it? So, there's times when they've had to perhaps cut off from life and then re-engage for different reasons. But yeah, it's a bit personal to go into it. But yes, I think that, life gets very kind of perhaps black and white because of it, because of the transits are just so full on when they're happening. Everything.
I think the comedian Eddie Izzard is one of those.
Is he? Yeah.
I think he might be. I think he's an Aquarian with everything in Aquarius.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and he's had a very extreme life. Interesting life, but extreme.
Yeah, so it does add intensity. Anyway, should we talk about what's going on this month? Because it's an Aquarian month, isn't it? And quite a lot happening in Aquarius. Should we put up the new moon and talk about the sort of themes of what's going on? I think I've got let's see.
That's 29th of January, isn't it?
I mean, what is extraordinary straight away about, this Aquarius season is that, it's going to be the first Sun-Pluto conjunction in Aquarius takes place, doesn't it? As soon as on the 21st of Jan, the Sun moves into Aquarius straight away, runs into that Pluto in Aquarius. So these Aquarian themes we're going to see quite strongly, I think, in January. And by the time of the new moon, we've also had a Mercury-Pluto conjunction in Aquarius, which happens on January the 29th, the day of the new moon. So Aquarius, and particularly with Pluto being pulled in, it's really quite powerful what's happening. So Aquarians really notice, are you stepping into a position of power? Are you up against some kind of powerful influence? But Pluto is really powerful as we move into Aquarius season.
So the 20th and 21st of January, as the Sun goes over that Pluto, and there's the inauguration in the United States.
Yeah.
This is the beginning. It's almost like, okay, so we had Pluto in Aquarius last year, and lots happened, which was very Pluto in Aquarius. And now the Sun, it's a really interesting combination of the Sun and the shadow on that 20th and 21st. And I think a lot of people will really be able to see this in your own life somehow, that there is something is thrown into relief. Something becomes evident, and it will be in a different part of your life, whatever. So for example, Taurus, who are having quite the year, who will be having quite the year, this may be something to do with like a boss figure, someone who is in charge or parent, or to do with your job. It becomes very clear in this week, around the 20th, 21st, and then that week following up to that new moon. Because the new moon is on that same angle. So it's huge. I would sort of put it all into one sort of bundle. That last week of January is so important to see what's happening, and actual events may take place as well. So for Leos, this is going to be about other people, the others in your life.
Yeah.
Someone. Yeah. So it could be good, like someone who becomes much more powerful, or it could be difficult. Someone who's an ally becomes more powerful. You make a powerful ally, or becomes clear that a person who's a friend is actually going to be really empowering for you. Or it could be quite difficult for Leos, as in an enemy comes out of the shadows, or a difficulty.
Yeah. It can go either way, can't it? When we have these powerful conjunctions, it can either be something that's kind of moves you forward, or it can be something that's, is quite destructive. So looking out for that. Also, I think it's interesting for Scorpio, Pluto, your co-ruler. And it's in the Scorpio's home and family sector. So again, for Scorpio, I think there's this double theme of being pulled back into the past with that, where you needing to go back into the past to kind of work things through in some way. And I'm thinking a bit of that retrograde Mars, even though things may not be out in the open, there's quite a lot going on. There's quite a lot you need to engage with in those key areas. And also, just to say, you mentioned Taurus. The other thing I think is really important on this new moon is that Uranus turns direct just on the back of it. So Uranus, one of Aquarius ruling planets in Taurus. So, I mean, again, that could be for Taurus. It could be you decide to make this quite radical shift or move because of what's happening in your career or future path. It feels as if the two events may be connected. What comes to light maybe during the new moon, what you see gets you ready to sort of leap into something new on the back of the new moon.
Yeah. And it's the 30th. Yeah. So Uranus goes direct on the 30th.
Mm.
And actually, again, so we're talking about the fixed signs here. So that Uranus, so we've got the Sun Pluto conjunction, then we have the new moon pretty much in that similar place. Then we have Uranus going to direct. So this is a lot of stuff happening quite quickly. And at the same time, that Mars is quite, in some ways, quite supine. You know, it can be steamrolled. There's less resistance from the Mars. There's less something that might normally, I want to say something or someone or some situation that might normally put up some resistance or put up a fight is not putting up the fight, is waiting. There will be some fight later on in the spring when Mars goes direct. But at the moment, there's this sense of, as these that these planets are big planets are rolling forward, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think Jupiter goes direct later as well, you know?
Yeah, Jupiter goes direct on February the 4th. And also, I mean, during this new moon, the Sun and Moon are at 9 Aquarius, Jupiter's at 11 Gemini. So they make the Sun Jupiter. There's a lovely trine aspect of them on the 30th. And that feels great for all the air signs, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. You've got this kind of, you know, Mars is holding things back. So I think for Cancer, maybe you're, you know, reviewing stuff, perhaps linked to finances, partnership. But for the air signs, there feels this expansion. It feels like a time to think about leaping into something new. You may not be feeling this kind of retrograde Mars quite so much. And if so, you may want to, you know, you may be feeling social. You may want to get out there, throw a party, I don't know, travel, sign up to a course. You know, it's about really saying yes to life for the air signs, I think, with Jupiter so strong in Gemini.
Mars can create an opening, can't it? It's like when something's not there at the moment, it creates an opening. I would be, I mean, I think it's maybe not the time to start something new, but unless you're just exploring it. So, you know, but I mean, I think the main messages for this spring, this time, you know, the next few months is experiment and don't feel that you have to commit to things.
Yeah.
But you may find that because all of the big planets are moving forward, circumstances, situations unfold quite rapidly. And you have to kind of, you know, you might not have that much control. That's my feeling. One might not have that much control. I mean, Geminis are this, you know, Geminis and Libras and Aquarians, like the air signs, as you said, are full of vim and energy and excitement, I think. Starting right at the beginning, again, right from that Pluto-Sun conjunction, actually, it makes fantastic aspects to Geminis. I'm not going to name any Geminis in the news, but you know who I mean. And off you go with this kind of rocket fuel, this, you know, nuclear powered start to the year. And there may be some hesitations and stuff, but really it gets going when that Jupiter takes off at the beginning of February.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also it's for the air signs in particular, it's about using your networks well too. With, so, you know, this lineup of planets in Aquarius, it's about getting the right people on your side finding the person you want to do things with, or getting the right networks. And air signs, as we know, they're great networkers. They're good at getting the right people on their side. So I like this new moon energy, and I know everything. It's a weird time with Mars retrograde and Venus and Mercury both about to go retrograde, which will be in Pisces season. But I think there is something about it that still it's how do you respond to life, and making the most of things and saying yes to stuff to see where it leads, not looking at kind of the resolution or the destination in a way, but being open to new possibilities because they could lead somewhere. I'm thinking specifically of partly my daughter, Libra, and she's just said yes to this new sublet, new group of friends. It's only short, but who knows where it might lead. So I'm just thinking of, when we've got retrograde planets, sometimes astrologers say, don't do anything. Stop. Stop. Get off the world. Things are slowing down. But you've still got to respond to life, and you've still got to try things. So I think you're right with this exploration theme that's going on. And I like this new moon for kind of, where's life opening up for me? Where can I try something new?
I think that you're right about who you know is important. And I think that's true for all the air signs, but it's for everybody. And I also think that if we're just going to look at this month with one overview, this is the Sun in Aquarius month. It's Aquarian month, right? So we're also getting a flavor this month of it opens with the Sun-Pluto conjunction. And then the Sun takes that darkness from Pluto and its own lightness and goes through the whole sign of Aquarius. So we may get a flavor again of how Pluto and Aquarius may be very evident this month, how that's going to work out. There may be a lot of there's going to be Aquarian stuff in the news, rockets and Elon Musk and all that kind of futuristic stuff is going to be in the news. But putting that aside, it's also about our own futures. It's thinking about the future, maybe not making any hard and fast plans. In fact, I wouldn't make hard and fast plans, but I would have ideas, and exchange ideas with people. And this is just a general point for everyone, but possibly, I would say possibly Aries in particular, it's this networking thing. It's about sharing ideas. And also for Libras, it's about sharing ideas and having plenty of ideas and having loads of conversations, not making the commitment, but being ready to really think outside the box and really explode previous ideas or raise them to the ground and think the unthinkable. Again, I think for Taurus, think the unthinkable, have a radical, think something very radical at this moment, Taurus, and maybe explore it.
Yeah.
You're in a whole, you may find yourself, I'm thinking, funnily enough, of my daughter who's in a whole different world at the moment. She's deep in the snow.
Yes.
She's neck deep in snow. She's skiing. She's in the Alps this winter. And that is, not only is it's not just another country with another language, but it's also another landscape. And I think that is a metaphor for a lot of us, is that there is a new landscape in the world with Pluto and Aquarius. And this month we can see it highlighted because the Sun is going through this new world.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And also just looking at this new moon and thinking, about, I'm just thinking of Sagittarius, because also, it's, Jupiter's your planet, and all these Aquarius, the planets in Aquarius are in your kind of communication sector. I know a Sagittarius who's recently kind of launched a podcast, which is the voice as well, and experimenting with that. And I wouldn't be surprised if, on this new moon, it kind of really, it takes off, or it catches someone's attention. It gets the attention of someone. So for Sagittarius as well, with this, when the Sun is trying Jupiter, it's one of the best aspects at the end of January. So it is a time to shine, to, find that influencer or find the person who can, you really get your voice out into the world as well.
Yeah, Sagittarius should be looking for a partner
Yeah.
in this. I think that you would benefit from your benefit from an interlocutor for, or interviews or someone to bounce off of.
Mm,
Would be helpful for Sagittarians, and maybe not just one someone, but several someones that you're bouncing off of.
mm,
And that may feel like it's never going to happen, but then suddenly when Jupiter goes direct at the 4th of February,
mm,
this person may walk in and there you are. And then that will take off really quickly, because another thing to note is that Mars is retrograde, but some of these outer planets are going to then move quite quickly when they turn direct.
mm,
So Jupiter turns direct, and then it's on the way out of, it's quite deep in Gemini. It's at 11, turns direct, but then it's going straight out of Gemini until June. It's marching right straight through and not sort of stopping on the way.
mm.
So there's a kind of urgency about these Gemini things, these ideas, these conversations. There's this urgency about it in general.
And also, just I do want to bring in Pisces here too. Because also you can see it in the new moon chart, those of you who are watching, that Venus is in Pisces and coming to a conjunction with Neptune on February the 1st. There's a lot happening, isn't it, at the end of January, beginning of
Yeah.
February? And we'll then move into Aries on February the 4th. So again, we're getting this. We're seeing now Venus doing this as we're talking about this pivotal point, leaving Pisces, moving into Aries. Venus and Neptune are beautiful together. I mean, they're low and higher archetypes of one another, both about beauty, the lovely things in life, sort of falling into things. I love Venus and Neptune together, but then Venus moves into Aries on the 4th. So what's that about? What's new? I mean, Pisces, finances, new approach to finances, maybe. But some
Sally and I have just been talking about my taxes. I've just been filling in my tax return, and of course realized that I haven't really been keeping very good records, which is very Piscean. So from now on, Sally, I'm going to keep really good records, claim
okay.
everything.
Okay, and your friend will be there beside you, holding your hand, holding your hand. But yeah, I mean, Venus so interesting as well, isn't it? That again, at the beginning of February, look what's happening with Venus shifting from the last degree of Pisces to the beginning of Aries, and she moves from kind of romantic, dreamy phase in Pisces to, I often think Venus in Aries, you've got to say girl power. I mean, she's strident there. She's warrior Venus. She's ready to make things happen more. So maybe she'll be kind of G'ing up that Mars retrograde in a way. It's like Venus, she has the strength then in Aries. I know it's meant to be a sign of detriment for
Oh no.
Venus, but I love Venus in Aries. It is the warrior woman. And
Well,
Venus, in mythology, often the warrior goddess. So she's going, woof, let's go for it.
I never take seriously these detriments, and also it's like, of course, it's in detriment if you're like a second century man in Alexandria. You don't
Yeah.
want Venus. Venus is supposed to be all feminine, so when she gets into this masculine sign, that's a detriment. Same for Mars, that men aren't supposed to be soft.
Yeah.
So go against that archetype. A and B, in real life practicality, I know many people with Venus in Aries, and I've actually done a whole kind of bunch of little articles about Venus and Aries and artists. So many great artists have Venus and Aries. Venus is the
Yeah.
planet of art. Aries is about being innovative, breakthrough, doing your own thing, channeling it. It's a wonderful placement, I think. I agree with you. I love it.
Mm,
So just as a general rule, if you're interested in like the detriments and you look at these, it's sometimes the very detriment, the thing that's called, when a planet is said to be in detriment, that's the very place where it performs most interestingly.
mm,
So
mm,
Mercury in Pisces is another example.
mm,
Yeah, I want to say go back to this Venus though. I agree with you, but I want to say that for the first up until it leaves Pisces, Venus is also, having said, it is also an exaltation, which is a different kind of Venus. Again, it's traditionally this is the best placement.
mm,
Um, but it can be overly soft and overly like letting everybody, doing what everybody else wants rather than what you want. And it's a very sweet placement for Venus. And then when it's making this conjunction to Neptune at the end of January, beginning of February, that is about universal love. And at the same time, that last week of January, all that other stuff is happening. Venus is making a really nice aspect to Mars. So she's softening that Mars again. So there is, I suspect there will be peace. There may be peace talks and things like that, or you could have peace talks. And this is something else I want to say about Mars in retrograde in Cancer is peace talks within the family.
Yes. Yes.
So, if you have a brother or a sister or whatever, or an aunt who you haven't been speaking to, or other people haven't been speaking within the family, this may be a time to bring people together, especially in that last week of January, if you're a Pisces, and even in that, and then when Venus goes into Aries, it's the Aries amongst us who may just say, oh, for God's sake, start talking to each other.
It's an interesting one, that, because it kind of is relevant for quite a few clients as well that I've been talking to recently. And I think the peace talks is right, and trying to sort things out in the family is right, but it's doing it in a way that isn't very Martian. It's not, because there's some people who just want to attack and be very defensive and kind of be strident almost. It's not doing that. Maybe Venus's move into Aries is teaching, the Martian type something. There's different ways of going about things. You can be assertive, but you don't have to, be on the attack or be aggressive. There's different ways of working things out. And I do think, particularly if you're getting together at the end of January, then it is more about, it needs to be more kindness, caring involved, more compassion in a way, to sort things out.
I would say just be conciliatory, and actually there's a possibility if you just think about what is the real outcome that you want. If it's your brother and sister not speaking to each other, for example, and you're the Venus, say, either in Aries or Pisces, and bringing them together, what is the real result you want? You want them to talk to each other. It doesn't really matter about the past. And I think this is back to this thought about burning the past. The past is ashes. The past is the past. Now it's time to sort of bury that and leave it behind, and move forward. And it's a question of how you're going to do that. It may take a while, but be conciliatory with Mars retrograde. There's one other thing that I want to mention. Sorry, we're kind of hovering around this end of January, beginning of February a lot, but it's because there's so much stuff happening.
Yeah, it's important.
Is the nodes. Because eclipse season is March, coming up in March. And the eclipses will be on that Virgo Pisces axis for the most part. There's one in Aries still. But that Neptune and Venus are making a conjunction with the North Node in Pisces now. And it's really the first big hello balloons.
Balloons.
It's the first big conjunction for that node. Is this one with Neptune, and Neptune and the nodes can be very much about like a kind of release of energy. So I would expect there to be some kind of release of Neptunian energy around that time. And this is, it's big for Pisces, so it may be some kind of mystical thing, but it may also be actual water. So just keep an eye out for that. Or it may be artistic, or it may be peaceful and conciliatory. But the fact that there's a Venus Neptune North Node conjunction in Pisces for those at that time is actually incredibly positive.
Yeah, it is. And that North Node is going to be, the North Node is getting triggered so much, actually, as these planets go back and forth from Pisces and Aries. And also, I think, really powerful for Virgo, too. This is all in your relationship sector. It could be a real romance. It could be a sort of something fair, or you write a fairy tale. It gets, I don't know, that people love. But yeah, it's falling into, there is the fantasy element, which includes romantic love, I always think.
Yeah, definitely.
That falling in love stage, the honeymoon stage. It does feel like that for Virgo. What are you falling in love with? It may be a person, or it could be some kind of creative flowering that's going on in your life. But yeah, really, I find it quite lovely, that Venus Neptune North Node.
Yeah, and it's very important for Geminis.
Mm,
This is on your career angle. If you happen to be a person who works in the arts, this could be a real
yeah,
opening for you, or going up to another level, or people falling in love with you,
yeah,
right? So if you're like a movie star or something, this could be a really big thing,
yeah.
a great movie, win a prize.
Mm,
Are we looking
mm.
at the Oscars this year, Sally? Are we
We
gonna?
are looking at the Oscars, but they're on beginning of March.
Hmm.
But we are looking at the Oscars, and of course, it is awards season now, so the sort of contenders are coming forward.
I was so pleased to see that Demi Moore got something for The Substance.
Yeah, yeah, Scorpio, isn't
God.
she? She's Scorpio, so it's in her
Yeah.
kind of, creativity as well, isn't it? It's for Scorpios, this feels very creative, and things being born or coming into being. So yeah, I thought that was fantastic.
Mhm.
Scorpios never give up, just saying.
Oh, but have you seen The Substance?
No, I haven't yet.
Oh my God, I enjoyed it so much.
Okay.
It's it's kind of gross, just to warn you. But
Yeah, I kind of heard the themes. I thought, oh, I need to be in the right mood to watch that one.
yeah, she's great.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I watched Ghost again recently.
Oh, I love that movie. I
She's so
love
good.
that.
She is such a
Yeah.
good actress.
Mm,
Um, she manages to do all that emoting without kind of overdoing it. Anyway.
yeah. Yeah. Really touching movie, that one. One of my
Mm.
favorites. I mean,
Yeah.
watch it if you've not. Okay, should we leap onto the full moon
Yeah, go.
as I'm aware of the time? Which is on February the 12th. It's so funny, isn't it? This time of year, the sun always moves into the signs kind of earlier, doesn't it? Moves into Aquarius on the 19th, and it moves January 19th, and then moves into February into Pisces on February the 18th. I'm getting all Pisces muddled.
Oh, Pisces muddled. That's a new phrase.
Pisces muddled.
That's what we like to do, Pisces, don't we? We like to muddle people.
I,
Muddle them, confuse them, and then overwhelm them. That's the Pisces mode.
bewitch them. You
Yes.
bewitchers. You bewitchers. And
Um,
yeah, lovely it is. So by the time of the full moon, so we haven't even got Mercury is still in Aquarius, isn't it? The
yeah.
Sun and Mercury are side by side in Aquarius. Mercury will move into Pisces. I think actually it moves into Pisces on February the 14th, Valentine's Day. Words of love, maybe pen a romantic poem to your loved one on Valentine's Day.
It's a full moon in Leo, of course, like it
Yes.
is, like it always is. So,
Mm.
that's important for you guys, Leos. Um,
Really important.
yeah, it's your full moon. You get it once a year. And, you may be up all night, of course, as is often the way with the full moon, unable
Yes.
to sleep with
Yeah.
your teeming emotions. And, I think one thing for Leos also this month that's quite interesting, and is just to note again that start of this Aquarius month with the conjunction of your sun, you're ruled by the sun,
Mm,
and it makes the conjunction with Pluto, and then it's in your opposite sign for the whole period that we're talking about. And it's not exactly it's know your friends and know your enemies and know your allies and know your partners. Everything just is highlighted somehow. All the
mm,
other people in your life are highlighted. You see them clearly. And
mm,
it may feel like you don't have a lot of control in February for Leos.
mm.
Um, and that may actually, I think it might kind of get to you. But don't worry about it, because, it's something, partly getting used to that Pluto in Aquarius. and it's something that happens every year. Um, and actually, at this time, one thing that's good, there are things balancing it in the sky at the moment, that all that energy in Aquarius um can feel kind of contra. Do you know what I mean? I know quite a lot of Leos who really hate February with a kind
Mm,
of passion. Um,
yeah,
Partly because it's so in the north here, it's so dark.
yeah. Yeah, and also I just feel, often I think it's an interesting one when the sun's in your opposite star sign. For everyone, this is it's as far away as it can be, and I often think that means your spirit or essence is kind of diminished a little when it's in the opposite. Maybe other people are getting all the glory and you're not, or maybe there's issues with other people. So, and I think this is a powerful full moon for Leo because of that. The sun, which is your ruling planet, it's the moon is in Leo. It's kind of your heart or your inner is in Leo, but the sun is far away. So maybe you can't shine as brightly as you would like. I don't know, or maybe there's someone diminishing your light. And it's kind of a wild full moon because we've got Uranus in there.
Mm.
Uranus, the planet of change and things happening suddenly, dramatically, is in a very close square to both the sun and moon. Sun and moon 24 degrees, and Uranus at 23 Taurus. So it is kind of this, there's again, who's coming in, who's changing things, or whose behavior kind of brings something unexpected. And that may be across the board a little bit. It does feel like a full moon where events could happen that you weren't expecting. I mean,
Yeah, I
full
agree.
moon full moons are dramatic, they heighten emotions. This one, there's a lot going on. So be aware of that during this full moon phase.
I think that the important thing to take from that, to note really, is that it's a it's called a T square
Yeah.
when you have an opposition with a square hitting it. And so
Mm,
it's a T square, moon, sun, Uranus, and it's pretty much perfect. And that's good. That's a surprise.
yeah.
And by now, Uranus has only just turned direct. It's
Yes.
still at 23 degrees. So it's still been sitting on 23 degrees Taurus. So if you've got anything at 23 degrees, it's very triggered at this full moon. So
Mm,
clearly, again, our Taurian friends may be surprising us a lot right
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
For Leos, this may be a boss, or it may be your career suddenly taking off. I think that you're going to have, or you're going to make this big switch. Um, and Aquarians, it may be that you're moving house, you're
Mm,
shifting, you're opening up, the gates are opening, and it's becoming, Uranus is getting to the end of its tour through Uranus. So it's starting to kind of deal with stuff quite quickly now. And leave, make the changes that it's been making over the last 7 years. Um, it's kind of finalizing them, you
mm,
know. So again, for Leos, you may have been switching career, and now it's really switched on.
mm.
And I'm
Yeah.
just thinking for Scorpios, you may have been getting divorced or switching partners, and now action is being taken on that.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because, the Uranus is actually going to rush through Taurus. I mean, it'll be gone. It moves into Gemini in July. I mean, same Jupiter turn. So these two planets that are about freedom, space, change very often. Jupiter also is going to be rushing through Gemini in a way and will be gone, move into Cancer in June. So, I mean, it's again thinking of these next few months about what are you kind of completing, or where are you finally letting go? I want to say, I don't think it's starting something. I think it's letting something go or creating more freedom in your life. I wonder for Capricorn as well, because this is the financial axis, this full moon. I wonder whether there's going to be changes around a child or a lover when it comes to money matters at this full moon. It could be a good full moon to make some quite tough decisions, almost, cut people off in a way when it's the right time to do it, or let go of a commitment, or, lower expenses, that kind of feel to it. I think it might be a good time to leap into things. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting that that because I think that Uranus and Jupiter bring opportunity. I mean, not always. Sometimes the opportunity is the opportunity to be slagged off, but it's opportunity.
Mm,
And I think that it's like opening a door with Uranus. It gets turned on and it gets turned off. It's like a switch, and now it's been
mm,
switched on. So
mm,
wherever that Uranus is in your chart, it really gets switched on at this full moon. It's gone direct, it's getting switched on, it's coming to the end of its thing. It's important to note that it only goes into Gemini for the summer and then it goes back
mm.
into Taurus. So it's not
Yeah,
completely finished
true.
this stuff off.
Mm,
A and B, I'm not sure it is about letting go. I think it's about freedom, but I agree with you. It's about freedom and liberation.
mm,
Um, but it's more like something comes from the outside and is
mm,
offered to you sometimes with the
mm.
Uranian thing.
Yeah,
Um, and it's important for everyone. And this full moon is a pivot with this
mm,
because it's
mm,
such a tight um, confluence of energies. Um, so I would really be paying attention to, where it falls in your chart.
mm.
So again, like for say Aries, it definitely might be about some kind of money opportunity. Actually, it might fall into your lap.
Yeah,
Um, Pisces, it might be that you get offered, some kind of you can teach a course.
mm,
You're being offered a teaching thing, or you're being offered some way of magnifying your voice
mm.
in the world. Um, so so each one of us is going to feel this, I think, in a
Yeah,
slightly different way. And for some, and what's interesting about a T square shape is that part of it's difficult, the squareness of it and the opposition. But if you're, say, a Sagittarius, the full moon makes really nice aspects to you, and
yeah.
the Uranus makes an interesting inconjunct, you know.
Mm, mm.
Um, so I,
It,
I would say for Sagittarius, it may be, that you have a colleague who opens things up for you, or something's changing at work.
yeah. Yeah, and also with T squares, I mean, I think you need squares and oppositions in your
Yeah.
chart because they give you something to work with, and you can develop strength, grit, determination, and that's so you engage actively with life. So this it's an interesting one. I think there is something calling you to engage actively with life during this full moon. We'll see. I mean, I think, for Scorpio as well, it could be around homes too. And I'm just thinking that with Mars in Cancer, changes at home as well, or within the family.
Hmm.
I'm just aware of our time, Christina.
Oh my
We
goodness, there was so much to talk about.
we have been talking quite a lot.
Yes, yeah, and next month promises to be like equally as busy astrologically.
Yeah, it
Um,
does. It does. In fact, I think if anything, I know we've got the Mars retrograde, but I still think there's a lot of potential to get your ducks in a row. If you listen
oh,
to 2025 astrology,
oh
we had
yeah,
a we had ducks in a row, and but yeah, I kind of like the month moving forward.
yeah.
Get things in place, get Aquarian systematic, organized if you can, line things up, ready to take advantage of this forward moving shift.
Um, I would say slightly to the side of that is don't expect things to turn out in the way that you think they will,
Agreed.
because they're not going to.
No.
A and B, have options,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This is all about keeping your
Yeah.
options open. Do not think, oh, I'm going to commit to this now and it's going to be
Mm.
fine, because that's the way
Yeah.
it's going to go.
Yeah.
And also, if people are saying, sign this contract, it's going to be fantastic. Obviously, you may have to, but
Mm.
still keep your options open and don't assume that whatever it is definitely going to pan out.
Yeah.
So for me, it's less feeling that you have your ducks in a row and more like we're back to the eggs in baskets,
We are. This is back
right?
to the 2025 astrology talking about this weird beginning, actually, to 2025. First few months, to-ing and froing.
Yeah.
One
So
step forward, one step back.
So keep your options, have multiple options.
Yeah.
Don't feel that you have to commit to anything specifically. But keep everything going if you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
And expect the unexpected around this full moon. Do
Yeah.
you want to ping us out
I'll ping us out.
of the share thing?
There we go.
Yeah, so expect the unexpected from Uranus going direct. Anything could happen. Because Uranus is like on a wild ride out of Taurus
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. It's lively. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for listening in. Please do share the podcast far and wide and leave us some lovely reviews. We always appreciate it. And we'll see you next month.
Bye-bye.
Bye.